All right, so good afternoon. I represent IFC. IFC is part of the World Bank Group. I will introduce very quickly. But before that, Uma, I must admit that you have set a certain, tone, because your presentation was quite short. I think I was fearing that the 20 minutes will not be enough for me because this is technical, but you are showing me otherwise. So that's why I put my alarm, and I will try to live up to this. So as I said, yeah, I represent IFC, and I work for the PPP Transaction Advisory of IFC. And an interesting thing, when you look at the subject, sustainability demands strong PPPs. What does it inspire you? So from my perspective, PPP require preparation. So you need to really be prepared. You have a project as the public party, and you want a partner to come and develop the project for you. So you need to know your project. This means doing all the analysis, technical, like is it technical feasible, commercially viable? Do you address like key ENS issues or mitigate them? And with basic infrastructure, permit approval, the beneficiaries, the level of revenue. So we need to analyze all these things. By the way, I hope this slide will be made available to you because I do have like 20 pages for the press and another 20 because there are things that I cannot discuss here. So I will not go in detail because I want to focus on the case studies. Okay. So this is along the same lines that I just mentioned here. So affordability, technical, structuring. So there are many issues to be considered, like as you can see, site layout, site typologies, and you will see why when I go into some case studies. So what are the challenges that I think we are facing in a PPP? So things that we really need to be aware of. So the procurement is quite complex, but it is worth the time because you can compare it with a situation of public procurement where the public has to spend the money up front. Here you don't spend the money up front, but you need also to spend some time in negotiation, discussions. There are many things to consider, such as environmental and social, payment guarantees. Is the private party comfortable with the revenues, And in terms of lesson learned, to do a PPP, you really need to have an enabling environment. You also need to have a process that is transparent, even though not all PPPs are done through a competitive bidding process, because there is what we call negotiated deal. The public party can find someone and they sign an MOU and they do the negotiation, but there are caveats for those. Yeah, I think these are PPP models. So a summary here, as I said, the private party will provide the infrastructure for some revenues. So it boils down to who, for instance, is taking, the demand risk. So I'm taking a housing PPP, for instance. I build the unit and I'm expected to get some revenues. So will I get the revenues regardless of the tenant paying or not? So this is, I think, what I will use here as a takeaway. Also, I spoke about cross-subsidization. So these things have to be taken into account in the analysis here. And what is our experience? I think 2 days ago, there was a lot of talks here regarding India. So currently, we are working on 8 PPP mandates in Asia and Africa. I see a colleague she will come later. She is advising on one of our projects in in the Pacific. I will not name countries because these are ongoing mandates, so that's the reason. Student accommodation. So I'm leading a transaction on student accommodation, affordable housing, plus my other transactions. So in terms of PPP in housing, it became a hot topic in IFC 2 to 3 years ago. Our top management, housing is a priority. Guys, you guys need to go out there and do some PPP in housing. So hit the ground, run and go get some things. So we signed some mandates. So what did we learn from that? Before we went, we only had a success story, and that was in India. So it was for the provision of 2,600 units. So as you can see here, the construction cost was quite low. Result of cost of construction, but also size. Look at the size, 34 square meters. And existence of a mortgage market, which was discussed here. So that was, quite of a success. But could this model be replicated in other markets? That is the question. And if you ask me, I will say, okay, let's look at parameters, in these markets. So when we talk about replication, so what are the issues in other markets? I will not read because I think we are constrained by time. So high construction cost. So we're talking about affordable housing. The final user has limited ability to pay high construction cost. And this is a combination of many factors. Construction material are not available locally. You can also have people with preferences, building standards, requirements. In one of the countries where I'm working, it's so hot and also prone to earthquake that the regulation requires a lot of material. So it increases the cost. Land availability. You will see that some PPPs have failed, and very high profile PPPs have failed because of land availability. Okay. Oh, sorry. Yeah, so also, remember I said that PPP are like social infra. So they need support from the public party. And in a situation where the public party is not willing to provide the needed support, step in, you cannot go ahead. But I always say that, I keep it as a reminder, the ultimate responsible is not the private party. Because many governments have the feeling that, this is the PPP, just dump everything, on the private and they will do that. It doesn't work like that because they will go out, they also go out, borrow money from the bankers and come finance the project. So it's you have to give something, to get something. Okay, yeah, so I think I discussed the beneficiaries, the financing cost, which is something very, very important that we have discovered. I will cover that in the case study. And yeah, okay, so 5 minutes for the case study, I think that's good. I want you to go fast, so if there are things that I did not cover on the other slide, you can come. So first one is not a PPP, but why I'm putting it here, it will show why we fail, and why I'm putting it here. We were doing some BD, business development, and we had the head of state of a country. He said, you guys, I saw this PPP, this model that you did in country X. I'm not naming the country. Can you please replicate in my country? Okay, fine. So we go do some research, and we realize that we may not be able to replicate. Why? Because for us, every project that we do, at the end, we do what we call lesson learned. So here, this is not a PPP. Remember I said you can have many solutions. So that solution was a private to private. So IFC went in there to say, let us lend money to the bank, because the bank, we want to increase the capacity also to lend to the beneficiaries, increase the capacity of the bank. Another unit of IFC said, we are good at financing developers. So let's select some of them, we lend them money. So the developer will build the houses, and then the beneficiaries will go and get mortgage. Huge project, 75,000, replicable. What happened? The project did not take off. These are the reasons. This is not a PPP, but these are the reasons. Government failed to make available service line on time. They did not even make it available, by the way. The bank also found that IFC loans were a bit pricey, and yeah, everybody can blame on COVID-19. So, but this shows you what needs to be in place for a PPP, or even, you know, this project to work. Case study 2, very interesting case study. So, small country, provision of housing for, you know, for a certain segment. But remember I said, affordable housing itself does not lend itself to PPP. So the idea here was to tell the developer, okay, you will build some medium standing unit at your, for you. So the pricing, it's your pricing, you take the demand risk, so you can put the margin that you want. And the affordable housing unit, as per law in that country, no private sector can rent or sell directly. So this is a, you know, result from the due diligence. So these units were to be handed over to the government, and the government will make payment to the developer. So this is the PPP that we were contemplating. And so on the next slide, so this is the, I think, this is before the last slide. So on the next slide, what are the issues that we encountered? And Keisha, I know, I think, give me maybe 2 more. I'm 18 now, it's 20. So I think I want to, you know, yeah. So government in that country was like, okay, we borrowed money to service the land, so we want to recover the money. But if you recover the money, even for the affordable housing segment, aren't you penalizing, you know, the beneficiaries, because it will translate into a higher cost? So this is an issue. Size of the unit, we do have, you know, local preferences. The household typically is 6.2 people, so the units are quite, you know, sizable. So consequence on the cost of construction. So when we did the studies, we came up and said the project is not viable for the affordable housing segment. Government, you need to do something. We also, when we do our PPPs, we go out there and sound the market to hear the views. So developers are like, hey, IFC, we were suspecting that. We are not here to stay for a longer term. I'm in the business of building the houses and making my money. Of course, you want to hook me with, you know, these other affordable, but I will not stay beyond a certain term. Question. So the government, when they take the delivery of the affordable housing unit, they go out there, they select some beneficiaries, and they sign what we call rent to own at the own rate, on term. So if you have the same term, PPP and rent to own, the developer will say, no, I don't want to be, you know, hooked for 20 years. So let's reduce. But when you reduce the PPP term and you keep the rent to own term longer, you have a mismatch in revenue. Government is collecting less, and they have to give more to the developers. So for this PPP to work, we told the government it will require a monthly top-up of not a big amount. Enfin, I don't want to give the amount of X. Government has not responded. What is the alternative as government? Right now, how do they provide affordable housing? They go out there, borrow money. So affecting the, the debt capacity, knowing the limitation, and build the unit themselves. Whereas under this scheme, what would have happened, you could have, let the developer build, stepped in, to bridge the gaps at certain level and have the project function, especially after the term of the PPP. All the money that was being collected was higher than the money that they were, paying out. This is what we call value for money in PPPs, but the government did not move. And I think the thing with the question marks are very technical. They are not meant to be discussed in 20 minutes, but you guys understand that the higher the price for the affordable housing, the better the margin for the developer. But the project will not be affordable. So if you reduce here, you need to intervene somewhere. So it shows the complexity of these. And the very, very last one, student accommodation project, we came to the conclusion that the cost of construction was an issue. So let's increase the number of beds per room from 2 to 4, or let's do a combination. And also let's go out there and seek some support mechanism, such as CAPEX buy-down from the government, tax breaks. Some universities come and say, out of the 3, no, my students have graduated, you don't leave high school to go to university and still live in a room where you guys are 4. So these are showing you, the complexities and things that need to be addressed. And the critical role that government needs to play in, affordable housing, PPPs, because a normal, commercially viable project will not require such things. So that's why here you will see that I did not put any like IFC transaction advisory thing, Before I've put all in annex because now we want to see government commitment before we proceed. So having said so, I think, I will conclude here and open up for questions. Thank you.
Jacques, we don't have time for questions, but there is a comment from Debbie Erb. Go ahead, please.
Okay.
I just wanted to say for everybody that if you're on the other side of this, it's really important, in my experience anyway, that governments really don't know how to design a bankable PPP contract. Except in maybe the power sector where they have, expensive advisors to help them. But in the housing sector, they really don't know how to do this right. So IFC's role is extremely important in that respect. But if you're on the other side of it, you're the contracting party, and you want to finance that contract, it has to be bankable from a lender's point of view. And all of the issues related to the government's obligations under that contract have to be secured and verifiable, that the government has the resources to honor those obligations. And a lot of times with housing, those obligations are being taken on by an entity that isn't, like a core funded entity. They don't have, budget. So it then falls on central bank or finance ministry to step up to whatever kinds of, backstop the lender is going to require. And then it gets really messy.
So for messy, I can see you, but do you really not want to go to lunch?
No. 1 second. Okay. Thank you. I'm just taking the privilege of the winner of the most innovative PPP and why it works. Yes. So one statement, the reason why it works, based on experience, we've done it once in Port Harcourt in 2012. We're doing it now in Sierra Leone, it's working. We're again doing it in Greater Port Harcourt. Just one thing that makes it work is political will. In Africa, the head of the government must have a very strong will to deliver a PPP. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mustafa. Thank you. So I think this warrants another masterclass. Okay. Would you be willing to do that? We'll call you online.
Okay,
online.
Yeah, I think online, yes. Yeah, I have more time and I think we can go into more details.
Time, there can be more detail, we'll make it a good, solid, feel-good session.
I agree,
Good?
I agree.
Okay, thank you very much. It's very good.